Welcome to HFY Sci-Fi Stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss new stories. The Galactic Military Academy's Admissions Council, in a moment of what they deemed pure genius, decided to exploit Earth's pathetic plea for military alliance. They'd cherry-pick the most absurd applicant, a figure of ridicule, and transform the entire endeavor into a cosmic jest, resounding across 17 star systems. Their goal? To so utterly mortify humanity that no future Terran military proposal would ever be entertained. Their chosen pawn was ideal, a 12-year-old boy from Earth named Jake Morrison. His application, a clear mishap intended for a children's program, had inexplicably landed in their stack. The Council seized upon this error. They relished the prospect of the headlines, "Preteen Earthling crumbles in combat drills at unprecedented speed." For years to come, the other races would chuckle at this. Krillian Empire Admiral Theexar himself authorized the acceptance, his mandibles clicking with unrestrained glee. He savored the image of human astonishment as they grasped that their champion still possessed milk teeth. The other members of the Council, the galaxy's elite military strategists, thrummed with excitement. This promised to be the most hilarious blunder in the Academy's chronicles. Never would they have believed Jake Morrison would truly arrive. The transport landed at 0800 hours that Tuesday, a day destined to be etched in galactic military records as the hinge of fate. Jake descended the ramp, a battered duffel hanging from his shoulder, boots impossibly oversized, and a smile that plunged nearby instructors into a sudden existential crisis. "By the stars," gasped Lieutenant Vexen, a Zenthari combat veteran of 3 decades who had forged legendary warriors. "They actually sent a child." Jake surveyed the imposing obsidian structures, absorbed the hostile stares of bizarre species, and his grin somehow stretched wider. "So this is it," he mused, addressing no one specifically. Mom was right. It does look like a prison mated with a spaceship. The adult cadets, from a multitude of warring planets, gazed at him as if he were an oddity from another world. A hulking Krillian female, towering at 7 feet, with chitinous plating, bent low. "Are you lost, child?" she rumbled, her voice a seismic tremor. "The civilian areas are that way." Jake met her gaze, unafraid. "Nope, Jake Morrison, Cadet Class 2847, Earth's finest, reporting for duty." He delivered a technically flawless salute, a feat for someone barely reaching the waists of his fellow recruits. The Krillian's eyes widened. Nearby, a cluster of Voran cadets, famed for tactical genius and zero sense of humor, furiously calculated the likelihood of this human. With a chilling announcement that standard combat training survival hovered near 0, doubt took root. "This reeks of a sick joke," one muttered, "or a colossal error." "Probably a dash of both," Jake chirped, slinging his bag and strolling towards the dorms like he owned the very stars. The initial unsettling sign surfaced during orientation. Instructor Ketavar, a draconian whose race had conquered worlds, delivered his usual grim speech, detailing the Academy's brutal training. He reveled in explaining the 23% injury rate and 4% fatality rate within combat courses. Jake's hand shot up. Ketavar, stunned, paused. "Yes?" he hissed, reptilian features twisted in disbelief. "Quick question," Jake said, unfazed. "Are those stats pre- or post-human arrival? Because I suspect we might skew them." A hush fell over the hall. 300 alien cadets stared at the human, daring to question the death statistics. Ketavar's nostrils flared, hinting at either grudging respect or imminent incineration. "Those," he began, his voice measured, "are based on trained warriors from species forged in evolutionary war." His voice dropped, laced with threat. "Perhaps you wish to reconsider, human child." Jake pondered this for a fleeting 3 seconds. "Nah, I'm good. Just wanted the lay of the land." He leaned back, nonchalant. Besides, Dad always said I was a quick study. That afternoon brought the initial practical demonstration. Cadets were paired with upperclassmen for a gentle combat assessment to identify those needing extra help. The instructors purposefully saved the human for last, anticipating a quick, amusing end. Jake found himself facing Thumma, a Krillian behemoth, 6'8", two-time heavyweight champion. This was supposed to be a cordial introduction, an emphasis on supposed. "Try not to break him too badly," Ketavar called as they entered the ring. "We need him awake for medical." Thumma nodded, genuinely reluctant to harm the human child. It felt wrong, like bullying a hatchling. He'd make it swift, a painless restraining hold to illustrate their size difference. With nervous energy, Jake bounced, loosening his muscles like a seasoned fighter ready for the bell. What unfolded next became subject of Academy analysis for its groundbreaking techniques. Thukmar advanced, embodying Krillian combat, powerful, deliberate, seeking dominance through size and reach. Yet Jake vanished seemingly there, yet impossibly behind, beside, beneath Thukmar. The Krillian's might found only air as Jake danced through the combat space like a stream finding its path. "What?" Thukmar began, finding himself supine, Jake's boot gently placed on his chest. The circle was breathless. Jake withdrew, offering a hand. "Good match," he offered sincerely. "Your reach is unreal. I had to improvise." Thukmar paused, then accepted the offered assistance, rising. "How?" he whispered. Jake shrugged. "Baseball, wrestling, 3 older brothers who were character-building enthusiasts. You learn." He grinned. "Besides, with all due respect, you telegraph your intentions like sending postcards." Instructor Ketvar's datapad clattered to the floor amid a wave of multilingual whispers among the cadets, variations on, "Did that really happen?" The real pandemonium began during survival training. The Academy's survival simulation was legendary, replicating the most brutal alien landscapes. Acid rain deserts, ice planets prowled by sonic predators, jungle moons with flora as deadly as fauna. The course intended to shatter cadets, teaching resourcefulness, threat avoidance, and survival until rescue. Most barely survived 8 hours. The record stood at 16 hours 23 minutes, set by a Vorth, a tactical genius mapping the optimal route. Jake completed it in 6 hours, 47 minutes, humming a tune about a sweet Caroline. He emerged, slightly disheveled, with a spear fashioned from the simulation and a small purring creature draped over his shoulders. "How was the survival course?" Cadet Morrison asked Instructor Vexen, striving for composure. "Pretty enjoyable," Jake replied, cradling the purring being. "The acid rain posed a challenge until I discovered the cave system, and the sound hunters were initially intimidating until I recognized their feline nature. The little guy, he saved me, finding water when I was lost, and he scratched the beast behind its ears, like he knew it. I think he must be lost too. Can we keep him, please?" Beekson glanced at her assessment tablet, then at Jake, then back at the furry creature, then at her tablet again, her brow furrowed. Her datapad stated that based on simulation models, that purring being Jake was now cuddling was a Class 7 predator, formidable enough to eliminate even seasoned warriors. And yet here it was, seemingly domesticated by a child in a few hours. "Cadet Morrison," she said, her voice carefully controlled. "That creature is a holographic projection." Jake gazed down at the contented animal in his arms. "Wow, amazing holographics. He feels totally real." The creature nudged Jake's hand, practically begging for more petting. "Are you certain?" Before Beekson could reply, the Academy's emergency alert system blared to life. Red lights pulsed frantically as the central computer broadcast in 17 languages. "Attention all personnel. Holographic simulation breach detected. Class 7 predator entity has achieved autonomous consciousness and is no longer responding to standard deletion protocols. Jake looked up at Instructor Vexen, wearing the expression of someone who had been proven right in the worst possible way. "So," he said, as the creature in his lap amplified its purrs, "about me keeping him." Later that evening, as maintenance crews desperately tried to understand how a holographic projection had gained true sentience through its bond with a human child, the Academy faculty convened an emergency meeting. Senior instructors crammed into the war room, their expressions ranging from bewildered concern to something bordering on existential dread. "Gentlemen," Admiral Thakar began, his mandibles clicking with agitation, "we appear to have quite the predicament." The emergency faculty assembly began at an ungodly hour in the Academy's most fortified briefing chamber. Admiral Thexkar's mandibles hadn't ceased their nervous clicking since the holographic incident. Every instructor present looked visibly aged from the day's events. The holographic predator, christened Biscuit by Jake, continued to exist independently and was being temporarily held in the research laboratory, where it purred contentedly and phased through objects. "Let me be clear about this," stated Commander Vaylor, the Academy's head tactical instructor and a Zenthari, a species with an unblemished record of victory in 3,000 years of war. A human child not only completed a most advanced combat simulation, but somehow created an independent entity? The precise term is accidental consciousness manifestation through quantum biological interface, clarified Dr. Katana, the chief science officer. Her tentacles writhed as she adjusted her datapad. "Our analysis reveals something astonishing. During the harrowing survival simulation, the human's brainwaves became inexplicably intertwined with the holographic matrix. This unforeseen resonance has unlocked a feedback mechanism, achieving the very thing we've been TQM. For eons, our research division sought to achieve what Cadet Morrison displayed," Instructor Ketvar thought, his clawed hand raising in disbelief after observing the young cadet effortlessly dismantle his own combat legacy. "Can we address the absurd reality that Morrison defeated Thmar without adhering to any known strategic combat?" he demanded, shock lacing his tone. "Millennia have been dedicated to perfecting the art of war, and I have never witnessed such unpredictability. Human combat lacks any recognizable patterns," Lieutenant Commander Hexval, a keen draconian military expert, observed, his voice sharp. "Since yesterday, I have pored through Earth's military chronicles. Their methods are utter madness. Their battle formations defy reason. Strategies breach fundamental principles, yet they miraculously snatch victory from inevitable defeat." A flurry of rapid clicks erupted from Admiral Thexkar. "Elaborate." "They term it improvisation," Hexval explained, genuine bewilderment evident in his reptilian features. "Instead of following concrete doctrines, they organically adapt, reacting to circumstances as they unfold. They create guidelines on the spot, and somehow achieve triumph." An oppressive silence enveloped the room as the ramifications echoed. Every galactic species had carefully sculpted military doctrines through centuries of meticulous refinement, building predictable behaviors to be analyzed and countered. But the cadets' defiance of this foundation created anxiety. "Additional layers exist," Dr. Kithano broke the silence, his voice hushed. "My analysis of Cadet Morrison's biological metrics during his assessment revealed unique neural activity never documented. It appears his neural processors are engaged in modeling multiple outcomes simultaneously, immediately acting with perfection." "Are you suggesting precognition?" Commander Veltar asked incredulously. "More perilous," the scientist said, his tone grave. "Combat intuition so amplified, its effects are supernatural. Couple this with physical abilities that negate his slight frame, and a total defiance of danger, displayed without pause, even facing what frightens hardened soldiers. The meeting continued for 3 arduous hours, each instructor contributing alarming observations about the humans' stunning ability. When dawn threatened, one consensus prevailed. Morrison was not simply a student, he was reshaping how the cosmos understood combat. The next day delivered the incident with Sergeant Vogar, a 1500B Krillian weapons master. Vogar introduced new cadets to the Academy's arsenal, showcasing proper usage, explaining safety guidelines, and correcting mistakes made by cadets during handling equipment designed for full-grown, formidable warriors. Jake Morrison entered the weapons lab precisely at 8:00 a.m. His gaze swept over the room before settling, stunned, on the immense energy rifle Vogar was showcasing. A single, incredulous question escaped his lips. "Is that trying to make up for something?" The lab fell silent as every cadet watched. Vogar's chitinous plates flushing a deep, ominous purple. Krillian for incandescent rage. Never, in the Academy's long history, had anyone dared to question Krillian weapons expertise. Their energy rifles were revered, instruments of lethal precision able to bore through starship hulls. "Perhaps," Vogar growled, his voice glacial. "The human offspring believes he possesses greater understanding of weapon systems." Jake simply shrugged and sauntered to the weapons rack. Instead of a standard training rifle, he selected a Voron pulse pistol, a compact sidearm usually too heavy and complex for even advanced cadets to wield effectively. "Mind if I try something?" Before Vogar could protest, Jake's fingers danced over the weapon, a concentrated frown on his face as he effortlessly adjusted settings that most third-year cadets didn't even know existed. "The trouble with these oversized rifles," he remarked conversationally, "is that they prioritize intimidation over actual precision. All that bulk and firepower, but the targeting is needlessly complicated." He raised the pistol, aimed at the range's farthest target, a speck barely visible to most species, and unleashed 6 rapid shots. Each one struck dead center, the grouping so tight that a single coin could have covered all the impacts. The lab was silent, save for the rhythmic clicking of Vogar's mandibles. Jake lowered the pistol, turning towards the dumbfounded instructor. "Sometimes," he said, a grin spreading across his face, one that promised trouble. "Less really is more. Faster handling, quicker target lock, and you don't look like you're desperately overcompensating." It was then that Vogar erred. Humiliated by a human child's flippant display of skill, his colossal pride shattered. He decided to escalate matters. He activated the lab's combat training protocol, a brutal system simulating live battlefield conditions with real fire exercises and dynamically shifting targets. "If the human believes he knows weapons better than his instructors," Vogar announced, voice dripping with venom, "perhaps he would like to demonstrate his expertise under actual combat." The cadets began to recoil. Combat training protocol was rarely introduced before the 3rd year, and then only to exceptional students. Using it on a first-week cadet was borderline homicidal. Jake surveyed the lab as automated targets sprang to life. Energy shields flickered into existence, creating cover and obstacles, and the lights dimmed, simulating a war zone. "This is either epically cool or seriously against protocol," he mused, a spark of excitement in his eyes. "Either way, I'm game." In the unforgiving void, a maelstrom of bedlam erupted, a scant 7 minutes etched in cosmic lore, destined to be dissected by military minds throughout the galaxies for ages hence. Jake flowed through the simulated battlefield, each movement a dance of deadly precision. The pulse pistol in his grip sang a song of controlled destruction, his shots defying the laws of probability. He wasn't merely reacting to targets, he was anticipating their every move, weaving the environment into his lethal symphony. Vokhtar's brutal exercise transformed, under Jake's touch, into a breathtaking exhibition of combat mastery. When the simulation ceased, Jake stood centered, untouched, having neutralized every threat without a wasted shot. The pistol still hummed warmly, and a grin played on his lips, the kind reserved for conquering digital worlds. Vokhtar, a titan of a figure, stood paralyzed, his frame vibrating with suppressed fury, or perhaps burgeoning fear. "Impossible," he rasped, his voice a low tremor. "The protocols, the algorithms, no first year has ever—" "About that," Jake interjected, placing the pistol back with effortless grace. "I think your targeting system's buggy. The third sequence was painfully predictable, and those barriers telegraphed their movements 3 seconds early." He paused, then added thoughtfully, "And honestly, whoever programmed the enemy AI needs a serious upgrade. Flanking maneuvers? Apparently a foreign concept." A heavy silence descended, shattered only by the rising tide of Cadet Thmar's laughter, the same Krillian Jake had bested in sparring. It started as a low rumble, escalating into a full-blown, echoing eruption. "The human whelp," he gasped between laughs, "is giving combat tips to a 1,500-pound weapons master who's trained elite warriors for 40 years. Other cadets joined in, their laughter not mocking, but born of sheer disbelief. A 12-year-old human, dissecting combat strategies for instructors who had conquered star systems, and somehow making perfect sense. Vokhtar's face shifted, rage giving way to a mask of weary resignation. "Cadet Morrison," he said, his voice measured, "report to the Academy Medical Bay for a mandatory psychological evaluation." Jake tilted his head. "Is that because I'm crazy? Or because you're afraid everyone else is starting to think they are?" The psychological evaluation, overseen by Dr. Zathine, the Academy's revered Mentari Chief of Mental Health, lasted precisely 47 minutes. Mentari, known galaxy-wide for their unparalleled ability to decipher thought patterns with clinical accuracy, had honed their assessment methods over centuries, studying the psychological profiles of elite warriors from countless worlds. Jake Morrison shattered her testing protocols in under an hour. "The standard assessment," Dr. Stein explained later to Admiral Thexar, her voice tinged with professional awe, "is designed to identify mental instability, aggression disorders, and psychological barriers that could impede military training. It has never failed to provide an accurate—" "What of the findings, and Cadet Morrison's outcome?" the Admiral inquired, a premonition clouding his features. "Inconclusive, utterly," the doctor declared, her psychic senses bristling with agitation. "His psychological makeup defies classification. Remarkable tactical insight, extraordinary resilience to stress, and unwavering composure under duress. Yet his responses to typical psychological tests are utterly anomalous. It's as if he processes battlefield events, social dynamics, and environmental demands through cognitive frameworks entirely absent from our psychological databases." Dr. Ass paused, her voice laced with bewilderment as she scrutinized her notes. "Admiral, I've immersed myself in warrior psychology for 3 centuries. I've dissected the minds of berserkers, brilliant strategists, and beings who think in complex algorithms. But this human child, I cannot even begin to fathom the inner workings of his mind." Later that evening, Jake found himself in the Academy's bustling cafeteria, surrounded by alien cadets who had shifted from regarding him as an oddity to viewing him as an intricate puzzle demanding resolution. The Voran cadets were particularly captivated, having dedicated the entire day to recalculating how his combat effectiveness could be possible from a mathematical perspective. "The probability equations simply do not align," announced Cadet Zixon, a third-year Voran tactical prodigy, his voice tight with frustration. "Your reaction speeds, precision ratios, and strategic choices should be fundamentally unattainable given your physical capabilities." Jake glanced up from what he could only describe as a sandwich, composed of ingredients utterly foreign to Earth. "Perhaps your equations are flawed," he offered with a cheerful nonchalance that bordered on audacious. The suggestion sent ripples of apparent mental anguish through 3 of the Voran cadets simultaneously. Their civilization was built on the cornerstone of unwavering mathematical precision, and to suggest that their calculations were fallible was akin to questioning the very fabric of reality. "Our mathematical principles," Zixon stated with strained composure, "have been validated across 14 star systems and proven accurate in over 10,000 combat engagements." "Cool," Jake replied, unfazed, as he bit into the alien concoction. "You're still attempting to quantify human behavior using the framework of alien logic. It's like trying to measure the beauty of music with a simple ruler." The analogy hung suspended in the air as the assembled cadets struggled to grasp its significance. Finally, Cadet Kver, a young draconian with remarkably astute tactical instincts, leaned forward, his eyes intense. "Explain." Jake set down his sandwich and gazed around the table, taking in the assembly of alien faces fixed upon him, their expressions a blend of bewilderment and fervent curiosity. "You guys all have rules," he began simply. "Krillians fight with unwavering honor and brute strength. Vorons meticulously calculate every possible outcome. Draconians rely on overwhelming force. Xantheres emphasize sheer speed and flawless precision." He shrugged, his expression casual. "Humans just do whatever it takes to win." "That is not a recognized military doctrine," protested Thumma, his voice rising in disbelief. "This is utter pandemonium." "Precisely," Jake beamed. "Wonderfully effective pandemonium." Their exchange was abruptly cut short as the intercom screeched, a siren wailing to life. "All cadets report to designated quarters immediately. Academy lockdown protocols are now in effect. This is not a drill." The cafeteria fell silent. Countless alien eyes locked, anxiety blooming across their faces. Academy lockdown meant genuine peril external attacks, critical system failures, a direct threat to cadet safety. Jake nonchalantly finished his sandwich, a slight grin playing on his lips. "Well," he announced to his increasingly unnerved tablemates, "this should get interesting." Little did anyone know, what unfolded next would sear itself into galactic history, a dark chapter. The lockdown's catalyst was utterly unprecedented, a formal grievance from the hegemony of Razor Worlds, a civilization renowned for its ruthless militarism. Their accusation, delivered through official channels, claimed the Galactic Military Academy harbored a weapon of mass psychological destruction, disguised as a human child. The hegemony, in their constant intelligence sweeps, had flagged Jake Morrison's file, triggering every alarm in their threat assessment matrix. Their analysis concluded that a human possessing such unpredictable combat prowess posed an existential threat to galactic military doctrine. "They demand immediate expulsion," Admiral Thexar declared to the hastily assembled faculty. Their official statement claims Cadet Morrison's presence constitutes psychological warfare against all non-human species. Commander Villar's brow furrowed. "The hegemony demands we expel a 12-year-old because he's too skilled, because he threatens their outdated strategies?" Dr. Kathana interjected, her voice sharp. "I've examined their data. Their simulations predict a human regiment trained in Jake's methods could obliterate their entire Third Fleet." Silence descended. The hegemony's Third Fleet, undefeated for 2 centuries, conquerors of 18 star systems, rendered helpless by a child's potential. "There's more," Thexar continued grimly. "The hegemony has issued an ultimatum. Expel the human, or they'll demand a Galactic Military Council investigation for violating interspecies warfare conventions." "What conventions?" Instructor Ketvar exploded. "The child hasn't broken any rules. He's simply surpassed expectations." "That," Dr. Kathana stated coolly, is precisely the problem. Jake Morrison hasn't just exceeded expectations, he's shattered them, challenging the very foundations of galactic military science. The hegemony isn't just afraid of him, they're terrified of what he represents. The faculty convened, their voices laced with uncertainty, debating Jake's destiny. Meanwhile, Jake was trapped in the Academy's austere detention sector, wrestling with his own inner turmoil. The stern lockdown had caged all other cadets in their rooms, but Jake found himself isolated in a secure cell, not as a condemned prisoner, but as an enigma. The Academy didn't know how to label him. He was beyond their understanding. Not a typical student, certainly not a threat, simply something unprecedented, for which their rigid system had no protocol. His stark surroundings offered a bed, a simple desk, and a window that revealed the bustling training grounds. He'd been diligently working at his desk for 3 endless hours, consumed by homework, when a chime announced an unexpected visitor. Cadet Thmar entered, bearing a tray laden with food, his face betraying the internal struggle of a mission he'd accepted against counsel. "Figured you'd be hungry," he rumbled, placing the tray down. "Cafeteria fare, but it's an upgrade from detention rations." "Thanks," Jake replied, a genuine warmth in his tone. "Any news from the outside?" The lockdown felt incredibly vague. Thmar lowered himself into the chair opposite Jake, the chair groaning under his immense weight. "The hegemony wants you gone," he stated flatly. "They believe you're a concealed weapon, masquerading as a student." Jake glanced up, his expression reflecting pure bewilderment, from what appeared to be an essay on the doctrine of comparative combat for multiple species. "Secret weapon. I'm 12. I play baseball and I'm barely passing algebra." "You also shattered Academy records by completing advanced training in your first week," Thmar countered. "And rumor has it, you charmed a sentient hologram that baffled the science department." "I guess it's nothing weird," Jake said defensively. "He's just an incredibly smart space cat, made of light." Thmar stared at him, his gaze unwavering. "Jake," he began slowly, "do you understand how extraordinary you are?" "Mom always told me I was special," Jake quipped, a playful smirk dancing on his lips. "But she also used to say that about my brother Tommy, and he got his head stuck in a pickle jar once." The Krillian's face shifted between amusement and pure exasperation. "You are not taking this seriously." "Should I be?" Jake inquired, setting down his stylus to give Thmar his undivided attention. "I mean, I'm trying my best in my classes. I haven't hurt anyone, and I'm pretty sure I'm not a weapon. What more do you want?" "You could try acting normal," Thmar advised. "Stop excelling at everything. Allow yourself to fail now and then." Jake considered this, a thoughtful crease furrowing his brow. "But that would be a lie," he protested, "and it wouldn't improve our training techniques." "Training techniques that apparently terrify entire civilizations," Thmar retorted. "Perhaps a healthy dose of fear is what's truly needed," Jake murmured, his voice laced with concern. "It's as if these perpetual war games have blinded everyone to the horrifying reality of actual war, and they've forgotten that real people are at risk. Real combat is about shielding the defenseless, not blindly following some dusty regulations." Their debate was cut short as Dr. Kithana entered, wielding a scanner and a look that screamed unwanted duty. "Cadet Morrison," she stated, her voice crisp. "I must run further diagnostics, some additional scans." Jake, unfazed, inquired, "What kind of tests?" "Ones that might reveal the source of your unique physiology," the science officer answered, activating the scanner. "With your consent, naturally." Jake shrugged. "Go ahead, but a heads up, Mom always says I break out in hives if I eat shellfish, and fake fabrics give me a rash." A ripple of what could have been suppressed amusement flickered in Dr. Kithana's tentacles. Duly noted. She began scanning Jake's head and chest, her expression shifting to bewildered fascination. "Fascinating," she breathed. "Good fascinating, or uh-oh fascinating?" Jake asked. "Utterly perplexing fascinating," she corrected. "Your brain displays neural activity in sectors absent in most species, and your physical state is absurdly advanced for your age." "I do a lot of push-ups," Jake said casually. Dr. Kathana paused. "Cadet Morrison, have you ever undergone any gene therapy, experimental augmentations, or exposure to advanced alien tech? Aside from gaming and a steady diet of pepperoni, nope." The scanner emitted a low, insistent hum, indicating either a critical error or a monumental discovery. "This can't be," she murmured, eyes locked on the readings. "These readings suggest your mind is processing data on a quantum level, not plausible with mere organic neural matter." Jake offered, "Maybe we're just wired differently. Dad always said we were too ornery to play by the rules anyway." Dr. Kathana's usually active tentacles stilled completely, a stark indication of utter disbelief within her kind. "Cadet Morrison," she began, her voice measured and deliberate, "I must pose a question of profound significance. Have you ever encountered moments where knowledge, previously unknown, seemed to surface unbidden? Or perhaps, decisions arose from some unseen source, yet proved unerringly correct?" Jake pondered. "Like when I knew Tommy would bean me with a baseball before I even saw him wind up? Or sensing Mrs. Henderson's pop quiz just by her stance?" "Yes," Dr. Kathana breathed, her tone hushed. "Precisely. Such instances." "Sure, all the time," Jake replied casually. "Doesn't everyone?" The science officer's scanner crashed to the floor, her tentacles now hanging lifelessly. "No," she gasped. "No, absolutely not." Concurrently, within the Academy's heavily shielded comm center, Admiral Thexar endured what ranked as the most agonizing diplomatic exchange of his extensive career with the hegemony's supreme military command. "Admiral, urgent report!" General Vexth's voice, a venomous hiss amplified across 17 allied worlds, shattered the comm's silence. "This human weapon. Intelligence reveals capabilities defying galactic combat norms. Unnatural predictive combat awareness and adaptive tactical intuition, screaming of forbidden artificial augmentation." Admiral Thexar struggled for composure. "General, Cadet Morrison is a purely organic human child. Scans prove no enhancements, alien or otherwise." "Then how," Vext roared, "does he conquer simulations that crush seasoned warriors, tame holographic predators, rewrite warfare by mere existence?" Thexar's mandibles clicked, a nervous tick. "We're investigating these anomalies." "Investigation's irrelevant," Vextool spat. "The Hegemony's ultimatum, remove the human, or we deem Earth a bioweapon developer and retaliate accordingly." The threat, cold and absolute, hung heavy. Retaliate accordingly meant interstellar war. "General," Thexar proposed carefully, "a direct evaluation. Hegemony specialists could examine Cadet Morrison firsthand." "Negative," the general snapped. "Our psychological warfare experts warn of irreparable damage. Prolonged exposure risks contaminating our forces with unpredictable human combat doctrine." The conversation concluded. Expel Jake within 48 hours, or face war. The link severed, Admiral Thexar understood. A 12-year-old, unintentionally, had become the galaxy's greatest threat. Back in detention, Jake, oblivious, completed his tactics essay, dissecting predictable galactic strategies, as Dr. Kayana ran increasingly desperate scans with ill-equipped machines. Thogmar remained, a captivated observer, suspecting Jake's monumental importance. "One final question," Dr. Kathana said, her voice trembling slightly. "Jake, during combat, does your perception of time alter? Slow down or speed up?" Jake glanced up, his essay revealing a scathing critique on predictable galactic military strategies. He confessed, recalling how during a practice duel with Thogmar, a peculiar sensation of temporal dilation washed over him, granting him an almost unnerving clarity, as if he could anticipate Thogmar's every move with effortless ease. What came next felt intensely strange, almost unnervingly so. Jake's perception seemed to warp. Dr. Cathano, her voice hushed with disbelief, murmured, "You're experiencing time dilation during combat stress. Human neurology can't simply do that. Or perhaps standard human neurology isn't so standard after all." Jake offered, "Humans have only been part of galactic society for 50 years, right? Maybe nobody's truly studied our capabilities under pressure." Tokma leaned in. "What do you mean? Earth is hardly a paradise." Jake elaborated. "Predators, disasters, millennia of wars. Maybe that relentless survival pressure shaped our brains in ways no one's recognized yet." Dr. Cathano's tentacles writhed, a display of profound, existential dread. "Are you suggesting humans are naturally evolved for combat, exceeding anything we've seen?" "I'm suggesting," Jake replied evenly, "maybe humans are just exceptionally good at not dying. And perhaps that's a far more dangerous trait than anyone realizes." Suddenly, the cell's comm system blared an emergency broadcast. Admiral Thexar's voice, laced with urgency, echoed. "All personnel, Academy-wide announcement. Due to external political pressure, Cadet Morrison will be transferred to Earth custody within 36 hours. This decision is final." Jake calmly set down his stylus, glancing at his companions. "Well," he said, maintaining his characteristic nonchalance, "that's probably for the best. I was beginning to worry I was unsettling people." Just then, Dr. Cathano's scanner emitted a piercing shriek, flashing an error message. "Subject exceeds meso mesh reactive parameters." Then, the alarms began. Not for Jake, but for something far graver. The Academy's early warning systems shrieked the impossible. An incoming hegemony fleet, hurtling towards them at full combat speed. The diplomatic charade had been a cruel deception, a ploy to buy time while the hegemony positioned itself for a devastating preemptive strike. 37 vessels on approach vector, the Academy's tactical computer announced in 17 languages. Estimated time to weapons range, 4 hours, 70 minutes. Threat assessment, overwhelming force. Hostile intent, confirmed. Moments later, Admiral Thexar's voice crackled over the emergency channels, burdened with the grim realization that bureaucratic maneuvering had spiraled into a full-blown military catastrophe. "All faculty to battle stations. All cadets to emergency shelters. This is not a drill. The hegemony fleet has moved to enforce their ultimatum through military action." In the detention cell, Dr. Cathano's scanner finally died, its shutdown sounding suspiciously like electronic resignation. Jake, barely glancing up from his essay, registered the invasion with mild curiosity, as if alien invaders were merely an inconvenient distraction. The approaching hegemony fleets were a source of mild irritation, not a looming catastrophe, so he casually inquired, "Anyone care to explain why 37 ships have everyone so terrified? This is the esteemed Galactic Military Academy. Shouldn't we possess adequate defenses?" Tokmar's face clouded with a sense of profound helplessness. "The Academy does have protective measures, yet those are intended for educational exercises and insignificant dangers. The hegemony force boasts 3 dreadnoughts and the raw strength to decimate a small moon." Dr. Cathana contributed, her tendrils quivering with anxiety. "Furthermore, Academy rules forbid engaging hegemony forces without the explicit approval of the Galactic Military Council. Obtaining that consent could easily take weeks." Jake processed this information with the same focused intensity he demonstrated when reviewing battle scenarios. So in essence, We have a scant 4 hours before furious aliens arrive to either imprison or execute me, and the Academy is helpless due to bureaucratic delays? A slight oversimplification, Dr. Katana admitted, but essentially, yes. A quiet resolve settled over Jake as he rose and started to move with the same deliberate stride he did in battle. What about evacuation? Can we transport everyone to safety before they arrive? Tho responded in a somber tone. Regrettably, no. The Academy accommodates over 15,000 students and staff. Our evacuation capacity is roughly 3,000 per hour, assuming ideal circumstances. Jake ceased pacing, his relaxed facade replaced by a steely determination. So thousands are doomed to perish because these aliens fear a single, insignificant human child. Indeed, Dr. Katana responded softly. A transformation flickered across Jake's face, almost imperceptible, yet profoundly unsettling. The light-hearted, playful boy who'd approached the Academy with such joyful enthusiasm had vanished. The shift was so palpable, the alien observers instinctively recoiled. When Jake finally spoke, his tone held a chilling steeliness, a raw edge never present before. "That won't stand," he declared. Just then, the detention cell door chimed open, and Admiral Thexica strode in, flanked by a heavily armed security detail. The rapid clicking of his mandibles betrayed his immense distress, a clear indication that the situation had spiraled far beyond his most dire predictions. "Cadet Morrison," he announced, his voice strained with formality, "you are being immediately transferred to emergency evacuation. A transport awaits to deliver you into Earth custody within the hour." "And the others?" Jake pressed, his voice still dangerously hard. "Everyone else will adhere to standard emergency protocols," the Admiral replied, though the frantic clicking of his mandibles spoke volumes about the inadequacy of those very procedures. A long, heavy silence fell as Jake gazed out the small cell window at the Academy's sprawling training grounds, now a scene of chaotic evacuation as thousands of cadets frantically sought escape. Then he turned back, his gaze locked on Admiral Thexica. His expression was utterly grave. "No," he declared simply. The Admiral's security detail stiffened, but Jake moved towards the window, his gaze fixed on something far beyond the Academy. "Cadet Morrison," Admiral Thexar began cautiously, "this isn't negotiable. It's about your safety and the facilities." Jake cut him off. "Admiral, how many will perish if I depart?" The question lingered, a palpable accusation. Thexar's mandibles stilled. He couldn't answer honestly without confirming Jake's worst fears. "Evacuation will minimize casualties," he stated at last. "That's not my question." Jake faced the Admiral directly. "How many die?" Dr. Katana moved forward, her tentacles agitated. "Jake, even if you stayed, you're helpless against a hegemony fleet. This isn't a simulation." "Perhaps," Jake countered, "but perhaps the issue isn't the fleet. Perhaps everyone's approaching this all wrong." Before anyone could inquire further, Jake was at the computer, his fingers flying across the controls with the same instinctive grace he displayed in combat. The screen illuminated with tactical data on the approaching fleet. "What are you doing?" Thexar demanded. "Homework," Jake replied, his eyes darting across fleet composition readouts. "The hegemony wants me gone because they fear I'm a threat to their doctrines, correct? They're not trying to conquer. They're eliminating a strategic threat." "That is correct," Dr. Katana confirmed, puzzled. "So what if we give them what they truly desire?" Jake asked, now accessing communication and diplomatic protocols. "Not my leaving, but proof that their doctrine is secure." Thmar approached, his massive frame looming over Jake's work. "What proof?" Jake's grin returned, sharper, more focused, carrying implications that made the adults profoundly uneasy. The kind that involves me being so utterly predictable and by the book that it proves human combat methods follow conventional rules. Impossible, Thexar protested. My performances have been the opposite of predictable because I was toying, Jake corrected, never stopping his work at the terminal. I was experimenting, having fun, seeing what worked. But if I wanted to be predictable... He paused, looking up, his expression both innocent and terrifying. I know every standard galactic combat doctrine. I've read every manual. I understand proper engagement protocols. Dr. Kathana's tentacles went rigid with realization. You want to deliberately lose. I refuse to battle precisely as the hegemony anticipates, Jake countered, his voice firm. To blindly follow their tactical forecasts, validating their belief that human strategies are mere deviations of established patterns. That's what they expect. It means engaging the hegemony fleet head-on. Admiral Thexar paused, weighing the words. Single combat, against impossible odds. Their algorithms will foresee this, predict it. Then I'll play the part of a predictably reckless human, Jake declared. The question is, does the Academy possess a fighter capable of transitioning seamlessly from atmosphere to space? A profound silence fell, only to be shattered by Thor Mar's rumbling laughter. This human child, he murmured, awestruck, intends to safeguard 15,000 souls by mimicking normalcy while confronting an entire fleet. Not fighting, Admiral, Jake corrected, emphasizing the distinction. Demonstrating. Thexar's mandibles clicked rapidly. Even if such a scheme were viable, and it isn't Academy protocols strictly prohibit cadets from combat. Precisely why I'm on the verge of expulsion, Jake retorted, a hint of amusement coloring his tone. Hard to break cadet regulations when I'm no longer technically a cadet. A heated debate erupted, lasting precisely 18 minutes. It concluded abruptly as the Academy's tactical computers issued a chilling update. Hegemony, fleet accelerating. Estimated time to weapons range, 2 hours, 43 minutes. We are out of time. Admiral Thexar's voice was laced with grim resolve. Cadet Morrison, you will board the evacuation transport immediately. Jake, still focused on the computer terminal, spoke urgently. Or, you could permit me to attempt something that might actually work, instead of merely hoping for hegemony mercy. What you propose is madness, Dr. Kayana protested, aghast. I propose theater, Jake corrected. The hegemony expects to witness human combat doctrine crumble, proving their calculations. So I will give them exactly what they anticipate. A human pilot mounting a tactically sound, yet ultimately futile defense against overwhelming force. He turned, his gaze meeting Admiral Thexar's. The only question is, do you trust me enough to let me try? Or would you prefer explaining to 15,000 families why their children perished because the Academy adhered to regulations instead of embracing the necessary course of action? The Admiral scrutinized Jake, a long moment stretching between them. He saw something new in the 12-year-old's eyes, a fierce, unwavering determination usually found in seasoned veterans, not children. His voice, when it finally came, resonated with the weight of a pivotal decision, one that could save the Academy or obliterate his career. Dr. Kayana, he directed, slowly, deliberately. Escort Cadet Morrison to Fighter Bay 7 and alert Chief Engineer Tovak. We require our fastest atmospheric fighter prepared for immediate launch. Admiral, Dr. Kaitana pleaded, her voice laced with worry. This action disregards numerous Academy directives and potentially breaches interspecies war protocols. Then we must guarantee its success, Admiral Thex retorted, a steely resolve hardening his gaze. 20 minutes crawled by before a somber Jake Morrison, squeezed into a hastily altered flight suit, found himself in Fighter Bay 7, gazing at a Zenther interceptor. Its alien design defied conventional physics, a masterpiece of lethal elegance, bristling with technology that could make planetary defenses tremble. Chief Engineer Tovak, a battle-scarred Draconian veteran, made final adjustments, his voice a gravelly rumble. "Recalibrated for your human body," he growled. "But this beast was forged for pilots with decades of experience and combat-enhanced reflexes." Jake, tracing the hull with reverence, asked, "Will she fly?" "Like an enraged comet," Tovak admitted. "But combat piloting will feel like conducting a symphony on a lightning strike." A familiar grin flickered across Jake's face, hinting at the wild chaos beneath. "Sounds interesting." Suddenly, Admiral Thiek's car's voice boomed. "All personnel! Hegemony fleet within weapons range. Surrender the cadet, or bombardment commences in 30 minutes." Jake slid into the interceptor, his small hands finding the responsive controls. "Tovak," he called. "One question. Full spectrum, quantum encrypted external comms, compatible with everything?" "Affirmative," Tovak yelled back. A predatory glint ignited in Jake's eyes. "Good, because I want the hegemony to hear every syllable as I prove human tactics are anything but predictable." The interceptor roared to life, and Jake Morrison launched into the void, facing 37 warships with cutting-edge tech, unshakable arrogance, and a plan that hinged on failing spectacularly. 3 months later, a sign hung at every military academy. No humans under 18, no exceptions, no humor. Not because Jake Morrison had been defeated,